The target of cruelty. Nia Carter had long accepted that she was invisible. At Westwood Academy, a prestigious private school in Connecticut, status was everything. You were either among the privileged elite, basking in popularity, or you were an outsider, someone the school tolerated but never embraced. Nia, a black girl in a sea of wealthy white students, had always fallen into the latter category. But it wasn't just her race that made her different. She was deaf. From the moment she set foot in Westwood's gleaming marble hallways, Nia learned the unspoken rule: if you weren't one of them, you didn't belong. She had spent years perfecting the art of going unnoticed, keeping her head down, avoiding eye contact, and immersing herself in the things she loved: her books, her sketching, and her dreams of a life beyond the school's suffocating walls. But some people refused to let her remain invisible. Lauren Kingsley, the golden-haired queen bee of Westwood, had made it her personal mission to remind Nia of her place. With her designer outfits, perfectly curled locks, and a smug sense of entitlement, Lauren ruled the school with an iron grip. Wherever she walked, students stepped aside. Whatever she said became law. And if you defied her? Well, you learned the hard way why no one ever dared to. Nia had never done anything to provoke Lauren's wrath. She had never spoken against her, not that she could, never taken anything from her, never even so much as looked at her the wrong way. But none of that mattered. Because to Lauren, Nia's very existence was an offense. It started small, the occasional sneer, the whispered jokes behind her back. Then, it escalated. Lauren and her clique would snatch her notebooks, rip out the pages she painstakingly filled with sketches, and laugh when she scrambled to gather them. Sometimes, they'd pretend to sign at her, making exaggerated, nonsensical gestures while mocking her deafness. And the worst? The cruel pranks designed to humiliate her. Like last Friday, when they had snuck into the art studio before Nia's project presentation and destroyed her entire portfolio. Months of work, gone. That was when she had almost broken. Almost. But Nia had spent her entire life learning how to endure. And no amount of cruelty was going to break her now. The library incident. The school library had always been Nia's sanctuary. Unlike the noisy, chaotic cafeteria or the judgmental gazes of the hallways, the library was peaceful. Here, she could lose herself in the world of books, where the characters didn't care if she was deaf, didn't care if she didn't fit in, they simply welcomed her into their stories. That afternoon, she sat curled up in her usual spot near the back, sketchbook in hand, as she worked on a new drawing. She had been captivated by a book about African royalty, filled with images of ancient queens and intricate jewelry. Something about the designs felt familiar, as if they whispered to a part of her that had long been forgotten. Her pencil moved instinctively, recreating the necklace from the book onto her page, adding her own embellishments. She didn't hear the approaching footsteps. Didn't see the smirks exchanged between Lauren and her friends as they stalked toward her table. Didn't realize what was happening until a manicured hand snatched the sketchbook from her grasp. Nia's heart sank. Lauren dangled the sketchbook in front of her, flipping through the pages with exaggerated disinterest. "What do we have here?" she mused. "Oh wow, look at this. Nia, are you drawing yourself as a princess now? That's so cute. You do know this is real life, right? Not some fairy tale where the mute girl suddenly becomes important." The girl surrounding Lauren snickered. Nia's jaw tightened. She reached out, but Lauren held the sketchbook just out of reach. "Let me see." One of Lauren's lackeys grabbed it from her hands. "Whoa, this is actually good. You should sell these, Nia." "Oh wait, how would you even negotiate the price? You can't exactly call people up, can you?" More laughter. Nia clenched her fists. She refused to give them the reaction they wanted. "Give it back," she signed, her movements sharp and controlled. Lauren smirked. "Oh, I know that one. You want this back?" She dangled the sketchbook in the air before, without warning, she ripped out a page. A piece of Nia's work, her effort, her passion, fluttered to the ground like a fallen leaf. For a moment, Nia just stared. Then, she looked at Lauren, her expression unreadable. Most victims of Lauren's bullying would shrink away, humiliated. But Nia? She just stood there, silent, unshaken. And for the first time, something flickered in Lauren's eyes. Doubt. Before she could react, a voice rang out from behind them. That's enough. The girls whirled around. Mrs. Alden, the librarian, stood there with her arms crossed, a disapproving frown on her face. Lauren Kingsley, I suggest you hand over that sketchbook right now before I take this to the principal. Lauren scoffed, tossing the book onto the table as if it had disgusted her to hold it. Whatever, she muttered, turning on her heel and striding out of the library, her minions trailing after her. Nia bent down, gathering the torn pages with steady hands. Mrs. Alden knelt beside her, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. Don't let them get to you, sweetheart. You have more strength than they'll ever understand. Nia met her gaze. And for the first time that day, she let herself believe it. A whisper of destiny. That night, Nia sat on her bed, staring at the sketch she had drawn, the one Lauren had nearly destroyed. The intricate necklace gleamed under the soft glow of her bedside lamp. She traced the design with her fingers, a strange sense of familiarity settling over her. Why did it feel like she had seen it before? She grabbed her laptop and did a reverse image search. A few seconds later, the results appeared. Her breath caught in her throat. The necklace she had drawn wasn't just a random design. It was real. A royal artifact, belonging to an African kingdom called Yoruba. Nia frowned. That didn't make sense. She had never been to Yoruba. She had no connection to it. Did she? She closed the laptop, shaking her head. Maybe it was just a coincidence. But deep down, something told her. This was just the beginning, the awakening of a forgotten past. An unexpected announcement. The next morning at Westwood Academy started like any other. Students strutted through the polished hallways, their conversations filled with the latest gossip, expensive weekend plans, and the upcoming charity gala hosted by the Kingsley family, Lauren's wealthy and influential parents. Nia Carter, as usual, moved unnoticed through the chaos, heading toward her locker. She was exhausted. The previous night had been spent obsessing over the strange connection between her sketch and the Yoruba royal necklace. The image was still burned into her mind, and no matter how much she tried to dismiss it, the feeling wouldn't go away. Her fingers brushed against her necklace, the one she had worn for as long as she could remember. It was a simple but beautiful pendant, its metal worn from years of being her only tangible memory of the past. She had been adopted as a baby and had no recollection of her biological parents, only knowing that she had been found with this necklace. Was it possible that? Her thoughts were abruptly cut off by the blaring of the school's loudspeaker. Attention, students. We have a special visitor on campus today. Mr. Albert, an envoy from the Kingdom of Yoruba, will be addressing the student body in the auditorium in 5 minutes. All students must attend. Thank you. Nia's heart skipped a beat. Yoruba. The name sent a chill down her spine. Whispers immediately spread through the hallways. An African envoy? What's he doing here? Maybe he's scouting for some foreign exchange students or something. I heard Yoruba is filthy rich from diamonds. Maybe he's here to donate to the school. Lauren's voice cut through the noise, her signature arrogance dripping in every word. Or maybe he's just here to remind us how lucky we are to live in a real country. A few students chuckled nervously, but even some of Lauren's usual followers exchanged uncomfortable glances. Nia's fists clenched, but she forced herself to ignore her. She had more important things to think about. As students flooded toward the auditorium, Nia's mind raced. Why was this envoy here? And why did she have the terrible feeling that this assembly would change everything? The truth in plain sight. The auditorium was buzzing with energy as hundreds of students took their seats. The massive stage had been set up with a podium, behind which stood a tall, distinguished-looking man dressed in traditional Yaluban attire. His deep brown skin gleamed under the stage lights, and his eyes scanned the crowd with sharp precision. Nia felt an unsettling pull toward him. She had never seen this man before in her life. So why did it feel like he was searching for her? The principal took the microphone first. Students, today we have a special guest. Mr. Albert is an honored representative of King Philip of Yaluba, and he has a very important message for all of us. Please give him your full attention. A polite round of applause followed as Mr. Albert stepped forward. Good morning, students of Westwood Academy, he began, his voice rich and powerful. I come here today with a great purpose. The Kingdom of Yaluba, as some of you may know, is one of Africa's most historic and prosperous nations, known for its culture, heritage, and strength. A ripple of murmurs spread through the crowd. Mr. Albert paused before continuing, his expression turning solemn. But I am not here today for a history lesson. I am here to find someone. Someone who has been lost to us for many years. The murmurs grew louder. Lauren rolled her eyes dramatically. Oh God, is this about some missing African princess? She whispered loudly, making sure people heard her. Mr. Albert's piercing gaze snapped in Lauren's direction. The auditorium fell into an eerie silence. Lauren shifted uncomfortably under his stare. He turned back to the crowd. There is a girl in this very room who carries the blood of royalty. A girl who was stolen from her home as a child. A girl who wears a necklace, one that belongs to the royal family of Yaluba. Nia's breath caught in her throat. Her hands instinctively flew to her necklace. At that moment, Mr. Albert's gaze landed on her. And he froze. The moment stretched on endlessly. Then, with slow certainty, he lifted his hand and pointed. Directly at her. A stunned silence gripped the room. Lauren turned her head, her face twisted with disbelief. What? Nia's mind reeled. This wasn't happening. It couldn't be. But deep down, she already knew. The whispers exploded into chaos. Nia? Nia is a princess? No way. She's deaf. That doesn't make sense. Lauren stood up abruptly. This has to be a mistake, she scoffed. You seriously think her, the weird deaf girl, is some lost African princess? Mr. Albert ignored her. He stepped off the stage, moving toward Nia with a slow reverence. When he reached her, he knelt before her. You, he said, his voice thick with emotion. You are Princess Amara of Yaluba. The world tilted. Nia's vision blurred, her head spinning as the weight of those words sank in. Lauren's face twisted with rage. No. This is ridiculous. She's a nobody. Mr. Albert rose, his eyes filled with authority. She is the rightful heir to the Yaluban throne. And no amount of your ignorance will change that. Lauren's mouth opened and closed, her mind struggling to process what had just happened. For the first time in her life. She had lost. And she knew it. A princess reborn. The rest of the assembly was a blur. Nia barely remembered being escorted to the principal's office, barely heard Mr. Albert explaining how she had been taken from Yaluba as a child, barely registered the realization that her entire life had been a lie. All she could do was sit there, gripping her necklace, as her world shifted beneath her. Your Highness, Mr. Albert said gently, I know this is overwhelming. But you are more than just a girl who was bullied. You are the future queen of a nation that has been waiting for you. Nia met his eyes. For so long, she had felt like she didn't belong. For so long, she had endured cruelty and isolation. And now, she was being told she was a princess. A force of strength. A symbol of resilience. And suddenly, for the first time in her life, Nia believed it. Lauren Kingsley had picked on the wrong girl. And soon, she would regret it. The rise of a princess. A new reality. The moment Nia stepped out of the principal's office, the entire school was waiting. Students were crowded in the hallways, whispering and staring. Some were in shock, others were buzzing with excitement. And then there were the ones who still refused to believe it, especially Lauren Kingsley. Nia could feel the weight of hundreds of eyes on her, but she refused to shrink away. For years, she had walked these halls trying to be invisible, hoping to escape the cruelty thrown her way. But now, she wasn't invisible. She was the center of attention. Her heart pounded as she walked past the crowd, holding her head high. And then, Lauren stepped in front of her. Her arms were crossed, her sharp blue eyes filled with venom. "This is a joke," she spat. "You? A princess? Of what, exactly? The land of the losers?" Nia didn't flinch. A few months ago, she would have. A few months ago, she would have ducked her head and let Lauren have her moment. But that girl was gone. "You're jealous," Nia said calmly. "And honestly, I don't blame you." Lauren's face twisted with fury. "Jealous? Of you?" She scoffed. "Get real. This is all fake. That man," she pointed toward Mr. Albert, who stood a few feet behind Nia, watching the interaction closely, "probably made a mistake. I mean, do you even have proof? Where's your DNA test? Your royal birth certificate? Or are we just supposed to take his word for it?" The students around them murmured, some nodding in agreement. Nia turned to Mr. Albert. "Is there proof?" Mr. Albert's expression remained unreadable. "There is proof," he said simply. "But I do not need to show it to her." He looked at Lauren with the kind of coldness that made even her flinch. "You do not matter." Lauren's face turned red. The crowd let out a collective, "Oh." Nia fought the urge to smile. Mr. Albert continued, "You can believe what you wish. But we are done here. The princess and I have far more important matters to discuss." Lauren clenched her fists, her lips curling into a sneer. "Yeah? Well, don't expect people to bow down to her just because you said so. Nobody cares about some African princess." The words were meant to sting, but Nia didn't let them. Instead, she gave Lauren a long, measured look. "You're afraid," Nia said softly. "Aren't you?" Lauren stiffened. "You're afraid that I'm not that girl you can bully anymore." For the first time, Lauren had no comeback. And for the first time, Nia saw the fear in her enemy's eyes. Turning away, Nia walked off, stronger than she had ever felt before. The departure. After hours of discussions, explanations, and legal confirmations, the reality had fully sunk in. Nia was leaving. Westwood Academy, the place where she had endured years of bullying, would no longer be her home. A private jet was waiting at the airport, ready to take her to Yaluba. Her adoptive parents had been informed, and though they were supportive, they were in shock. They had always known Nia was special, but they never imagined she was royalty. Now, as she stood in front of the school for the last time, she let the wind carry away the last remnants of her old life. Mr. Albert walked beside her. "Are you ready, Your Highness?" The title still felt foreign, but she nodded. "As ready as I'll ever be." But just before she could step into the sleek black car that would take her to the airport, she heard someone call her name. "Nia." She turned. It was Lauren. Her heart clenched, but she stood her ground. Lauren walked up to her, her face unreadable. For a second, there was silence. Then, "I hope you fail," Lauren whispered, her voice filled with bitterness. "I hope you get there and realize you don't belong. Because no matter where you go, Nia, you'll always be that nobody I walked all over." The words should have hurt. But they didn't. Instead, Nia smiled. "Funny," she said. "Because for the first time in my life, I feel like somebody." Without another word, she turned and stepped into the car, leaving Lauren standing there, seething, defeated, and powerless. As the car pulled away, Nia didn't look back. She was done looking back. A new chapter had begun. And this time, she was in control. The arrival in Yaluba. The moment Nia stepped off the jet, she was greeted by a breathtaking view, miles of lush green landscapes, mountains stretching into the horizon, and a golden palace that glistened under the setting sun. Yaluba was beautiful. Mr. Albert led her down the private runway, where a royal convoy was waiting. Guards stood in uniform, and as soon as she appeared, they bowed. To her. She swallowed hard. "This is really happening." Mr. Albert chuckled. "Yes, Your Highness. This is real." She followed him into the limousine, her heart hammering. As the car moved through the streets of Yaluba's capital, she saw thousands of people gathered, waving Yaluban flags, cheering, chanting. "Welcome home, Princess Amara." Tears burned in her eyes. She had never felt wanted before. She had never felt seen. But these people. They loved her. She wasn't the bullied deaf girl anymore. She was a princess. A leader. And as she neared the grand palace, a single thought echoed in her mind. Lauren Kingsley picked on the wrong girl. And soon, the whole world would know it. A throne and its challenges. A new life begins. As the limousine pulled through the golden gates of the royal palace, Nia felt like she was stepping into a dream. The palace was breathtaking, a masterpiece of ancient architecture and modern luxury. Towering marble pillars, gold-lined archways, and cascading waterfalls made it look like something out of a fairy tale. Hundreds of palace staff, dressed in royal uniforms, stood in perfect formation. As soon as she stepped out of the car, they bowed deeply. "Welcome home, Princess Amara." The words sent a shiver down her spine. Home. For the first time in her life, she wasn't just existing, she belonged. But there was no time to dwell on emotions. The moment she entered the grand hall, a figure was waiting for her. King Philip. Her father. He was tall, regal, and radiated authority. His eyes, deep brown like hers, held a mixture of power and tenderness. As she approached, he studied her with a gaze that made her heart pound. Then, suddenly, he took a deep breath and stepped forward. Without a word, he wrapped her in a tight embrace. Nia stiffened. She wasn't used to affection, at least not from strangers. But as she stood there in his arms, she realized something. She had spent her whole life longing for this moment. For someone to hold her, to tell her she mattered. And now, here she was. Tears welled in her eyes as she slowly raised her arms and hugged him back. "My daughter," King Philip whispered. "My lost daughter has returned." The grand hall erupted in cheers. Nia pulled back, overwhelmed. I don't even know what to say." The king smiled, wiping a tear from his eye. "You don't have to say anything. You are home now. That is enough." But deep down, Nia knew it wasn't enough. Because being a princess didn't just mean wearing fancy gowns and living in a palace. It meant duty. Responsibility. And judging by the way some of the royal advisors were looking at her. Not everyone was happy to see her here. The shadows of doubt. After the grand welcome, Nia was escorted to her new chambers. It was larger than her entire house back in America, polished marble floors, floor-to-ceiling windows with a view of the kingdom, and a golden chandelier that sparkled like diamonds. But despite the luxury, she felt uneasy. She could feel the tension in the air. Not everyone was on board with her sudden return. That night, during the royal banquet, she saw it firsthand. The palace's grand dining hall was filled with nobles, foreign ambassadors, and high-ranking officials. The long table was covered in gold-rimmed plates, and servants walked around pouring wine and serving dishes she had never even heard of. But despite the grand celebration, Nia noticed the whispers. The stolen glances. Some of the nobles, especially the older ones, weren't celebrating her return. She overheard one of them mutter, "A lost girl from America? How can we trust she is truly the princess?" Another scoffed, "She doesn't even know our customs. How can she lead a nation?" Nia clenched her fists. She had spent years being looked down on by people like Lauren Kingsley. She wasn't about to let it happen here. Determined, she turned to her father. "I want to learn." King Philip raised an eyebrow. "Learn?" "Everything," she said firmly. "The customs, the language, the history. If I'm going to be a princess, I want to do it right." Silence fell over the table. Then, the king chuckled. "You remind me of your mother. She was fierce, just like you." At the mention of her mother, Nia's heart skipped. What happened to her?" King Philip's smile faded. "We will talk about that another day," he said, his voice heavy. "For now, enjoy the feast. Tomorrow, your training begins." And with that, the conversation ended. But deep inside, Nia knew something wasn't right. Her mother's story was being kept from her. And she was determined to find out why. The trials of a princess. The next morning, Nia woke before dawn. Her training began immediately. From sunrise to sunset, she was drilled in Yaluban history, politics, and royal etiquette. She learned how to walk, how to address diplomats, how to hold conversations in multiple languages. She trained in traditional dance, sword fighting, and horseback riding, skills that every royal was expected to master. At first, it was exhausting. Her muscles ached, her mind was overwhelmed, and more than once, she wanted to quit. But she refused. She had spent too many years being weak, being pushed around. Not anymore. Within weeks, she had transformed. She spoke the native tongue fluently. She mastered royal protocol. She could fight, she could lead, she could command respect. And the doubters were noticing. But just as she was beginning to find her place, a shadow from her past returned. Lauren's revenge. One evening, as Nia was finishing her lessons, Mr. Albert approached her. His expression was grim. "Your Highness, we have a problem." She tensed. "What is it?" Mr. Albert hesitated before handing her a tablet. When she looked at the screen, her blood ran cold. It was a news article. The headline read, "American student exposed as fraud, fake princess caught in elaborate scam." Her heart pounded as she scrolled. There were pictures of her from high school, articles twisting her past, and worst of all, an interview with Lauren Kingsley. Lauren had gone to the press. She had told the world that Nia was a liar, that she was nothing but a bullied girl who pretended to be royalty. The media was eating it up. Some people believed Lauren's lies. Others were starting to doubt Nia's legitimacy. And if the royal court saw this? Her place as princess could be at risk. "This is bad," Mr. Albert said gravely. "The council will see this as a threat to your claim." Nia's hands trembled with rage. Lauren was trying to ruin her. Even from across the ocean, she still wanted to destroy her life. But Nia wasn't that scared little girl anymore. She was Princess Amara of Yaluba. And if Lauren wanted a fight, she was about to get one at the battle for the throne. A storm of lies. Nia stared at the tablet screen, her pulse pounding in her ears. Lauren Kingsley's smug face stared back at her from the news article. She was always desperate for attention, Lauren had told the reporters. She was bullied, sure. But this whole long-lost princess thing? It's a fantasy. A lie. I wouldn't be surprised if she faked the whole thing for sympathy. Nia's hands clenched into fists. Lauren had never just bullied her. She had tried to erase her. And now, she was trying to do it again. Mr. Albert's voice pulled her back to the present. The council will see this as a threat. Some already had their doubts about you, princess. Now, this story gives them an excuse to challenge your claim. Nia inhaled deeply. What do I do? He studied her carefully. You must prove yourself, publicly, decisively. And you must do it fast. Her heart pounded. She had fought her whole life to survive. To rise above. Now, she had to fight for something even bigger. Her right to exist as who she was. She lifted her chin. Then let's give them a show they'll never forget. The council's challenge. The next morning, Nia was summoned to the royal council chamber. The council members, a group of powerful, influential nobles, sat in a semicircle before her, their expressions ranging from neutral to openly hostile. At the center sat Lord Mbeki, the king's chief advisor. His sharp eyes studied Nia like she was an insect under a magnifying glass. We have a serious matter before us, Lord Mbeki announced, his deep voice echoing in the hall. A foreign news outlet has cast doubt on Princess Amara's claim. The world is questioning her legitimacy. He turned to King Philip. Your Majesty, we must protect the integrity of the throne. This scandal cannot go unanswered. The king's face was unreadable. What do you propose? Lord Mbeki's lips curled slightly. A royal challenge. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Nia frowned. A challenge? It is an ancient custom, the king explained. When the right to the throne is questioned, the heir must prove their worth through a series of trials, physical, mental, and spiritual. Lord Mbeki nodded. The trials will test if she is truly fit to be a princess. If she fails. He let the words hang in the air. She would lose everything. Nia squared her shoulders. I accept. A few council members exchanged surprised glances. They had expected her to be hesitant. They didn't know she had spent her whole life fighting. Let them test her. She would show them who she was. Trial 1, the test of wisdom. The first trial took place in the Grand Library, a vast hall lined with ancient scrolls and books. A panel of scholars sat before Nia, each holding a parchment filled with questions. Princess Amara, you will be tested on the history, culture, and politics of Yaluba, the head scholar announced. You must answer correctly. Any mistake will weaken your claim. Nia took a deep breath. The questions began. Who was the first ruler of Yaluba? What is the significance of the lunar festival? How does Yaluba's trade system operate? She answered swiftly, her mind sharp. She had spent weeks studying, absorbing knowledge like a sponge. When the final question was asked, the scholars exchanged glances and nodded. The princess has passed. 1 trial down. 2 to go. Trial 2, the test of strength. The next challenge took place in the royal training grounds. Nia stood before a group of seasoned warriors, her muscles taut. The princess must prove she can defend herself and her people, the head warrior declared. She will face one of our best fighters in a duel. Her opponent stepped forward, a towering warrior named Kofi, built like a living statue of power. He smirked. No offense, princess, but I won't go easy on you. Nia smirked back. Good. Neither will I. The match began. Kofi lunged, aiming to overpower her quickly. But Nia had trained hard. She dodged, countered, and struck with precision. For every blow he landed, she landed one of her own. Sweat dripped down her face as they circled each other. The crowd murmured, this was no helpless princess. Then, she saw her opening. A quick feint, a sharp twist. And Kofi was on the ground, disarmed. The courtyard erupted in cheers. Nia stood tall. 2 trials down. 1 to go. Trial 3, the test of spirit. The final challenge was the hardest. In the temple of the ancestors, Nia knelt before a sacred fire, surrounded by elders. The test of spirit requires you to face your past, the high priestess said. You must confront your deepest fears and prove your heart is pure. Nia closed her eyes. And suddenly, she wasn't in the temple anymore. She was back in high school. Back in the cafeteria, with Lauren Kingsley standing over her, sneering. You'll never be anything. The words hit like knives. Then, the scene shifted, she was in the palace, standing before the doubting nobles. She's not fit to rule. The fear clawed at her. Then, she heard another voice, soft, strong. You are my daughter. You are enough. Her mother's voice. Warmth filled her chest. She was enough. She had always been enough. When she opened her eyes, the fire burned brighter. The high priestess smiled. The ancestors have spoken. The princess is worthy. The crowd outside erupted in cheers. She had passed. She had won. She had proven herself. A message for Lauren. That evening, as she stood on the palace balcony, a thought struck her. Lauren Kingsley had tried to destroy her. But Lauren had failed. Smiling, Nia picked up a phone and called a journalist. Hello? Hi, she said, her voice steady. I want to give a statement to the press. The next day, a new headline swept the internet. Princess Amara responds to haters, I know who I am. And just like that, Lauren Kingsley's lies crumbled. A new dawn. As the sun rose over Yaluba, Nia stood beside her father at the palace gates. The people had gathered, cheering for their princess. King Philip turned to her, pride shining in his eyes. Are you ready, my daughter? Nia smiled. She had faced her past. She had claimed her throne. And now, she was ready for whatever came next. Yes, father, she said. I am ready. The coronation and the final reckoning. A nation rejoices. Nia stood before the grand palace balcony, her heartbeat steady, her resolve unshaken. Below her, a sea of people stretched as far as the eye could see. The citizens of Yaluba, men, women, children, had gathered in the royal courtyard to witness history. For the first time in decades, a lost princess had been found. Drummers pounded out a powerful rhythm, the air alive with energy. Traditional dancers moved in perfect harmony, their colorful garments swirling in the morning breeze. Flowers, rich with fragrance, adorned every corner of the palace steps. And at the very center of it all, standing tall, stood Princess Amara, Nia Kingsley. King Philip, her father, stood beside her, his gold-embroidered robes shimmering under the sun. His expression was one of immeasurable pride. He turned to the people. My people, today is not just the coronation of a princess. Today, we reclaim a piece of our history. His voice echoed through the square. For years, my daughter was lost, forced to grow up in a world that did not know her worth. But she has fought. She has endured. And today, she stands before you, a survivor, a warrior, a princess. The crowd roared in approval. Nia swallowed hard. This moment had once seemed impossible. But here she was, standing on the precipice of something greater than herself. It was time. The royal high priestess stepped forward, carrying an ornate golden crown, inlaid with emeralds and sapphires, the official crown of the Yaluban princess. Nia knelt on the sacred stone. Princess Amara, the high priestess spoke, her voice thick with ceremony. Do you swear to uphold the honor of this nation? To protect its people? To lead with wisdom and strength? Nia lifted her chin. I do. The high priestess carefully placed the crown on her head. Then rise, Princess Amara of Yaluba, rightful heir of the royal bloodline. As Nia stood, the entire nation erupted into celebration. She had done it. She had won. An unexpected guest. Hours later, after the festivities had begun, Nia sat in the palace gardens, taking a quiet moment to reflect. Then, a palace guard approached her. Your Highness, someone wishes to see you. Nia frowned. Who? The guard hesitated. Lauren Kingsley. Her stomach twisted. Lauren. The girl who had humiliated her for years. The girl who had tried to erase her from existence. Nia let out a slow breath. Bring her in. A few minutes later, Lauren was led into the garden. She looked completely out of place, her expensive designer dress and heels clashing against the natural beauty of the royal grounds. But more than that, she looked uneasy. For the first time in her life, Lauren wasn't in control. So, Lauren began, forcing a tight smile. I guess congratulations are in order. Nia folded her arms. What do you want, Lauren? A flicker of irritation crossed Lauren's face, but she quickly masked it. I wanted to talk. About what? Lauren sighed, shifting uncomfortably. Look, I was surprised when I heard the news. You, being a princess? It seemed crazy. Nia raised an eyebrow. Crazy because you couldn't imagine me being anything more than what you decided I was? Lauren hesitated. I never meant to. Yes, you did, Nia cut in, her voice steady. You meant every insult. Every humiliation. Every attempt to make me feel worthless. She took a step closer, her gaze unwavering. And now, you expect me to pretend it never happened? Lauren looked away. I didn't come here to fight. Nia exhaled. Then why are you here? Lauren was silent for a moment before speaking, her voice softer. I guess I just didn't expect you to actually win. Nia tilted her head. And now that I have... Lauren's lips pressed together. I don't know. For the first time, Nia saw it, beneath Lauren's usual arrogance, there was fear. Lauren Kingsley had spent her life at the top. She had built her power on the backs of people like Nia. But now? Nia wasn't just some girl she could push around. She was royalty. And that terrified her. Nia let out a quiet laugh. Lauren, I spent years hoping for an apology from you. But I don't need it anymore. She gestured around her. Look where I am. I know who I am now. Nothing you say or do will ever change that. Lauren's jaw tightened. For a moment, it looked like she wanted to argue. But then, something in her expression shifted. I guess you're right, she muttered. Then, with one last glance at Nia's crown, she turned and walked away. And just like that, Lauren Kingsley was out of her life. The future awaits. That night, Nia stood on the balcony of the palace, looking over the illuminated city. Mr. Albert approached her, his usual composed expression softened. You handled that well. Nia sighed. Lauren? He nodded. And everything else. She gave a small smile. For the first time in my life, I don't feel like I have to prove anything. I don't have to fight just to exist. Mr. Albert nodded. You have claimed your place, princess. And the real journey begins now. Nia looked out at the horizon. She had spent her whole life being pushed down. Now, she was rising up. The world would know her name. And this was only the beginning.